Okay. So I'm pretty much ready to go whenever. And then we'll start commentating once we get going. Okay, so we'll give a countdown. All right, and 3, 2, 1, start.
All right.
Woo!
Okay, so this game is Guacamelee. It's a 2D Metroidvania developed by Drinkbox Studios. There's an emphasis on platforming and combat. It's a pretty interesting game, and of course we'll talk more about it as we go on. I guess I should introduce myself. My name's Grimelios.
I am the Roosters Loose.
And I'm Red Rum.
As this run goes on, we'll be kind of all commentating on various things. I'll kind of give an overview of the run. First of all, I'm doing the any % category, which means that all I have to do is get the game and then beat Calaca, the final boss. As with, I guess, any speedrun in terms of commentary, it's a combination of general strats for movement, both in terms of the movement and the combat, and then also more unique glitches to specific areas that I'll talk about as they come up. I'll also say right off the bat that you might see some things that don't make sense right away because a lot happens in this run pretty quickly, and there's not necessarily a lot of time to commentate it. I've actually already done one of the most important glitches of the game, which is called Select Door Glitch. And what it is in a nutshell is a way to trick the game into letting me teleport all over the place, which is going to save all kinds of time. And the reason it works is that this game treats the main menu, like the title screen main menu, as a separate location, just like this mansion or Poblucho, the town or whatever. And so when you go through a door and open up your map at the same time, you can trick the game into thinking the main menu is somewhere it's not. What that means is if in a second here I'm going to quit out and watch what happens. Rather than actually quitting, I'm going to spawn back over here. You'll see me doing that pretty much constantly. In just a minute, I'm going to actually quit out again right after I get the Luchador Mask. It would also probably be a good idea for me to say just a quick 2 words about the story. This is Juan. We already saw Calaca. He stole the princess, and we're going to save the princess. And that's the story.
Now,
go ahead.
So he's getting the Luchador Mask here. This basically unlocks the start of all of the powers we're going to be getting. We're going to get the ability to roll. We're going to get the ability to punch and fight. You're going to see him rolling and then jumping almost the whole time during this run. Rolling is faster than walking, and jumping allows you to preserve that momentum. Now he's rolling and jumping very, very quickly, so you won't always see it, but he is rolling in between every jump that he's doing.
This guy's a troll sometimes. There we go. This is our first introduction to combat in the game. You'll see a whole lot more of it. But I like this game because I think the hits are very, very impactful. Time actually slows down a little bit when you hit things, which gives it an additional nice bit of game feel.
There's also a bit of a visual glitch happening right now, too. You'll see him swapping between like Juan's normal clothes and then as the Luchador because it's glitched currently.
Mm-hmm. That glitch will go away soon. So we now made it through the church. And we've already mentioned dodge rolling. Roos, did you mention how slopes are slower?
No. So basically, when you go up or down any sloped surface, you're actually going to be a little bit slower than moving over horizontal. So by rolling and jumping, we can cancel out as much of that as possible by staying in the air rather than actually interacting with the slope.
Mm. And Red, you want to say a word about this costume?
Yeah, so we're going to switch to costumes right now, and we are doing Aljibre. And the reason we are doing this is because costumes in this game are not purely cosmetic, and they have different perks available to them on top of the base kind of character choice. So Aljibre does double damage to everything, which is perfect for us for speedrunning because we can kill things faster. But another thing that also happens with her is that she takes double damage. And one thing that's important to note is that we are not going to be increasing our health at all through this run, so everything for the entirety of this run will 1 or 2 shot us.
It gets pretty dangerous really fast.
And that guy you just saw up there, that's our first introduction to Puma Man. He's going to be a recurring character that will show up, and he will be a boss fight later. There's a lot of different interesting characters in this game that are recurring characters you'll see that'll end up being boss fights.
Mm-hmm. This is the forest, by the way. Our objective here, remember I mentioned this game is a Metroidvania. I'm assuming everyone watching knows what that means, but just in case you don't, it means that we're going to have this semi-open world, and as we progress through the world, we'll pick up abilities that will give us access to previously inaccessible areas.
So this is our first arena here, and the way this game works is that every time we're in an arena, it'll lock you in. It'll be the same enemies in the same order, in the same positions every single time, but once they spawn, there is a bit of RNG associated with them, so fighting can be different every time.
And you actually saw that a little bit way back in the church arena. There was a yellow enemy, and that yellow enemy is kind of notorious for dodging pretty randomly.
Now he's going to be using the select door glitch here again to warp after we acquire this ability.
In case you weren't sure, the main menu is not supposed to be open over gameplay, but it is.
For reasons.
It's also kind of important to note, without going into the technical details, it's not that technical, but I have to be careful whenever you do these kinds of things because all my input is going to be processed twice, once by the game itself and once by the menu. So I have to make sure that I don't accidentally activate some menu option that I didn't mean to, or bad things will happen.
So this ability we've acquired is Rooster Uppercut. It's sort of like a Shoryuken from Street Fighter. He's going to fly up in the air doing some damage, and we're going to use that mostly for its movement abilities, not really for damage in this run.
It actually has pretty low damage compared to a lot of other attacks, even your basic attacks. And here I have to come back to the Agave Field to quit, and like magic, I'm all the way in Santa Lucida, which is one of the central hubs of the game. What I just did saves maybe 2 to 3 minutes of having to run here normally. And this is also a very good time to explain kind of some of the basics of this game. If you look up at the top left corner of the screen, it's a bit self-explanatory, but the red bar is health. As Red mentioned, we're not going to get any more health throughout the entire run, but we are going to get a bit more stamina. Stamina allows us to do these special abilities that we'll get. Right now, we just have Rooster Uppercut, and you can get more stamina. There we go. You can get more stamina by picking up 3 stamina chunks. That'll give you a whole new block. We just picked up 1 in that yellow chest, and then we'll be getting another one in an area called the Temple of Rain coming up, and we will actually be buying the last one. We'll say more about money a little bit later, too, in this run. First, you have to do this training arena, which, even though it just teaches you how to fight, and I would hope I already know how to do that in this game, you have to do it because if you don't, there's a giant chicken blocking your path to the Temple of Rain.
Just normal things, you know.
Yeah. Did we mention that the game's in French?
We did not. No.
We should probably mention
If you haven't noticed, all the dialogue is in French. Now, a lot of speed games obviously are run in different languages. Traditionally, they tend to be Japanese, for example, because more characters fit in less. But actually, in this game, French compresses the dialogue into the fewest number of dialogue boxes. Over the course of the run, it saves about 5 seconds.
But I mean, it's all the same, so it doesn't take any additional effort.
Your menuing is not any different, but you do save the 5 seconds for free.
It's also kind of, this isn't directly related to the run, but this game is actually really, really hilarious. And it's kind of unfortunate that unless you speak French and can read very, very quickly, you probably will miss most of it. This thing I'm talking to right now, by the way, is called an Olmec head. It is the game's built-in mechanism to teleport around the world in an intended way, because select or glitch is a glitch, and you're not supposed to do it. This area is Temple of Rain. You can tell because it's raining. It's the first temple of the game. We're going to go through a few of them, and it's going to introduce us to these portals that will allow us to alternate between the living and the dead world. And Roos, I can let you say a little bit about that.
Sure. If you guys have played anything like Link to the Past, you're probably familiar with the concept of games with light and a dark world. In this case, we have a living and a dead world. So you can see everything has kind of a purple tint to it now. We're in the dead world, and those glowing portals will allow you to swap back and forth. Now, some platforms will be slightly different, and you'll have some enemies that you can only interact with in one or the other world. Now, they'll still be able to hurt you from both worlds, but you need to be in the correct one to hit them back.
Later in the run, we'll get an ability called Dimension Swap, which will let us freely move back and forth between the living and dead world, but right now we have to rely on these portals.
So this is Shitabe. This is Calaca's girlfriend, or ex-to-baby, or spider-hair lady.
Her name is spelled, it's X''Tabay, so I think the official pronunciation is Shitabe, but you can pretty much call her whatever you want.
I think every runner has a slightly different pronunciation for her name.
Yep. Also, these enemies are called deluxes, and they like to just jump all over the place.
Yeah, RNG is pretty crazy.
Yep. But because I know where these guys are going to spawn, like for that group of enemies, I can just do an uppercut and just catch all of them. And keep in mind I'm doing double damage, which is why I can kill them all so quickly.
So you can see as he goes through these portals every time, he's swapping back and forth between the more yellow living world and the more purple dead world. And you can see a clear demonstration of how walls and platforms are moving every time he swaps back and forth.
That was our second stamina chunk that we just picked up. And one thing that you may have noticed already is that when you get the red tint on the character, it means that you have completely drained your stamina and you have to wait for it to refill before you can use it again. So once we get another block of stamina, we'll also be purchasing a delay stamina boost so that it refills more quickly, and that will allow us to be able to move through more efficiently.
By the way, this little arena here is a perfect example of the RNG, where there's always going to be those 8 skeletons, but you'll notice I actually had to dodge 2 of their bones because their bone throwing is random, and the bones 2-shot you because I take double damage and have such low health. This giant, I'm going to catch in midair because he one-shots you but he can't attack if he never hits the ground.
You can see a good demonstration of the light and dark world enemy difference. You'll see some of those skeletons are blacked out. That's because they're in the other world and you cannot hit them until you swap. They can still attack you though.
And here is Olmec Headbutt. It's the next ability. To kind of make it more clear with the Metroidvania aspect of this game, apart from the combat uses for these different skills, they also give you movement, and they allow you to break different colored blocks. A Rooster Uppercut, which is a thing we picked up in the forest, lets us break red blocks. This ability breaks yellow blocks. And I don't think I said this, it also is the single highest damage attack in the game. And so especially with double damage with this costume, you'll see me one-shotting a lot of different enemies.
So that right there is where we just picked up the third stamina chunk, giving us a third yellow block in the top left-hand corner, and also the delay stamina boost so that it recharges faster. One of the other things that we didn't get to talk about yet is how money is acquired in this game. And you can get it through a couple different ways. One is killing enemies. There's also Pinata that spawns at the end of every arena, which most of them we skip because we want to just get out of there as quickly as possible. But we do pick up some select ones, and also treasure chests will give you money. So we purchased those, and then there's another really big purchase we have coming up kind of in the midpoint of the run. So we're going to be doing a very special money route to make sure we have enough for that.
You can see how Olmec Headbutt is one-shotting these enemies. It's very, very powerful. And one thing we didn't say is what this gigantic monster is. This is Alahibre. This is the creature after which our current costume is named. We're going to come face-to-face to it later, and we're not going to actually fight it. It's actually going to be, well, we're going to run away from it because it's big and scary. But we'll run into that thing later on.
So what we're getting right now is essentially this game's version of wall jump, and that's going to open up a lot of movement options for us.
But it's called Goat Jump because this is Goat Man. I don't know what his name is, but his name is Goat Man. And he gives you all your abilities because he gets really mad at you for breaking all his statues. He also makes jokes about your mother. Like, he actually does. It's pretty great.
So weird.
It's actually a very funny game. Next coming up, we have what we call acid trip rooms. There's 2 of them. And they're just rooms that you have to work through with portals. And I'm going to be doing them in a way that is not the intended way, but it's a bit faster. Kind of involves jumping around and kind of hooking some of these walls for additional wall jumps.
Those sequences of jumps, especially in the second one coming up, are a lot harder than Grim makes them look.
Did we mention dodge canceling too? That's another pretty important aspect.
So if you'll pay close attention, when he's using his special abilities, immediately afterwards he will input a roll or a dodge. And what that's going to do is going to cancel out the rest of the animation of that ability.
You'll see me do it right up here.
Yeah, it's going to allow him to move much
Right
quicker
there.
and not have to wait for the cooldown. Now, the thing about that is the way the game mechanics work, when you do that, it's going to force you to roll as soon as you land, but you can buffer a jump and jump instead. Now, because of that, you're going to be forced to either jump or roll afterwards, and it's going to make optimizing your movement very difficult. There's a lot of technical work that went into planning out the movement of this route.
Here's
Extra
Shatabe,
baby.
Extra Baby, Spider Lady, whatever you want to call her.
Her hair defies physics.
It does. It's fantastic, though. There's kind of a general theme in this game with the bosses in that you'll notice we've actually seen this character, I think, 3 times by now. And we're going to fight her. That was unexpected. We're going to be fighting her later on, but we're going to see her a whole bunch of times first. Similar to the first one, I'm going to catch this giant in midair so that he can't attack me. And then there's just 2 more enemies in this arena. And there we go. Cool. I should kind of mention what our general objective is here. At the top of this area, the Temple of Rain, in terms of the story, Calaca, the big evil guy who stole your, not technically girlfriend, but sort of girlfriend, it's complicated, is going to try to do this ceremony at the top of the Temple of Rain. And so we're going to go up to the top and see if we can stop him. So that's kind of our objective. You'll notice we've been climbing this whole time, and we're almost at the top
childhood
here.
sweethearts. Is that what it was?
Yeah,
It's
I
something
believe
like
so.
that. There's the altar, but it's too bad we missed it. And so instead we get to run away from Alahibre, and it's an auto-scrolling sequence. You'll notice that the camera's going to follow me normally, but I have to wait for this giant monster to come break a bunch of blocks. So this is a really good time for some donations.
All right, we have 750 from Melva Cross. Hashtag
Melva.
Guacamelee. I'm crossing my fingers for a soft lock free run for Grimelios and a smooth Calaca fight. Please crush this bone you had the most degrading way possible. Blindfolded. Money goes towards the controller camp for half coordinated Momodora run. His runs are always a highlight for me.
Nice. Melva's another walk runner.
We have $50 from Team Ragtag. Good luck on the Guac one. Hashtag Ragtag Nation.
Hell yeah. Almost at the end of this. He's really big and scary. This is also a good time to point out that this game is chock full of references, and there's a pretty unmistakable one coming up right here. I won't tell you what it is, but you'll recognize it.
It's how Link beats Ganon.
Yep. That's exactly what it is. Throughout the run, too, you'll see some, especially in Santa Lucida, there's a bunch of posters that are, there's like references to TF2 and Fez and Castle Crashers and Mario and all kinds of stuff.
There's even some Twitch emotes in the posters in the background if you look closely.
Are there?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't actually see those. I learned something new today. She's really angry now because you killed her boyfriend's pet.
And he's going to be super mad at her.
Yep. So with the Temple of Rain down, that's kind of the first major part of the run completed. The next part is going to be an extended sequence break to fight Shitabe, that crazy hair lady that we keep seeing. Extabe, whatever you want to call her. To fight her, two things have to happen. First of all, the fight takes place in Pueblucho, which is the first town that we were in. But you have to be there in the Dead World. And remember, I can't swap on the fly yet. So you're not supposed to be able to get there in the Dead World, but because I have the select door glitch active from earlier in the run, what I'm going to do in a second here is grab one of these portals, and then I'm going to quit out. And remember, quitting doesn't actually quit the game. It just does this and teleports me somewhere else. And not like magic, I'm in Santa Lucida in the Dead World. The other thing is that I need an ability called Frog Slam, which is a ground pound ability, and I'll be going to get that over here. Along the way, I'll be doing another select door glitch, and you'll see pretty clearly that it looks broken because I'm going to have the menu open while I'm running around.
Casually speaking, you wouldn't be able to get here in the Dead World until quite a bit later in the game.
Go in, thank you. This is Flame-Faced. Similar to the other enemies in this game, we're going to see him a few times before we fight him. Well, actually, no, we're not going to fight him. Or go to his temple. If you play this game casually, we're actually never going to go to Tool Tree or Temple of War because it's slow. So we'll be doing the Shitabe fight, and then later on we'll be fighting Puma Man, whose actual name is Javier Jaguar, I think, but we call him Puma Man. And then we'll be fighting the final boss, but those are later. We'll get there later.
And we're going to be skipping fighting this guy. We want to keep him alive so he can drop his sick mixtape. I heard it's going to be pretty fire.
Oh my god. No.
Okay. Here's Frog Slam. Again, broke his statue and he's going to be really mad at us. Like every time you break a statue, it's like, did statues like touch you when you were a child or something? Because you really, really hate them. Like that's actual dialogue from the game, I think.
My favorite one in the casual playthrough, you break a statue and he actually just comes and yells at you and says, you don't actually get an ability from this, and it turns out you wasted your time.
So now we have both of the things we need to go fight Shitabe, but we can't teleport to Pueblucho directly, so we just have to go there through the forest.
Then we get to pick up a chest along the way.
You could probably read off a donation or two before we start talking about the boss fight.
All right, we have a $50 donation of Anonymous. As a veterinarian, I should probably save the animals. $10 from Bagel Thief and Lady Smail.
Woo.
Hashtag Guacamelee obviously had to donate during this run. Good luck to Grim and for the blindfolded final boss fight. Those watching are in for a real treat.
Shoutouts to Bagel and Lady Guac runners who pretty much taught me everything I know.
So helpful in the community.
Yep.
I love
Yeah,
them
they're
both.
Also like the nicest people on the planet.
Yes.
They show up for every Guac stream and are very helpful.
So I'm on my way to this boss fight, and I should say a few words about it. So you remember how from normal arenas, enemies spawn in consistent locations, but they have some RNG in their behaviors. The same is true for this boss. The fight's going to take place in 3 phases, and they're mostly predictable, but this boss loves to just teleport out of the way. And specifically, I'm going to knock her up into the air, and then when she lands, she's going to teleport. So I'm going to try as best as I can to juggle her in midair and beat her phase 1 without her hitting the ground. However, I also can't attack too quickly. It's actually pretty precise. But there is RNG involved, and we will see how it goes. The first phase ends at...
It ends when you've gotten her down to half health.
Yep.
I've lost more runs to this fight than any other part of this game.
So you'll see we're just kind of juggling her off the ground here.
Master juggler.
Yep, and that's phase 1 down. Now we have to just drop her down to a quarter health, and that's phase 2. Let's see how fast we can do it. Very, very difficult fight. Okay, that's phase 2.
Nice.
And then onward to phase 3. And we did this fight as a sequence break. And again, I'm assuming everyone watching Games Done Quick knows what a sequence break is, but just in case you don't, it means that we're doing the events of the game out of order. And specifically, we are doing this boss fight before we're supposed to be able to. Go away. Oh, wow. Not that far away, though. Come back. Stop that. Okay, that's the fight.
Good fight, dude.
Thanks. She's really random. She's going to give us Dimension Swap. That's the ability I mentioned that's going to let me freely swap back and forth between living and dead world. So that's going to be very, very useful. And now that we've beat her, we're now going to go through the desert, which is very creatively called the Desierto Caliente, which, unless I'm really rusty in Spanish, means the hot desert.
They're very creative.
Yes. Now, this game's great. And we were supposed to come through this whole area before we ever fought Shitabe. So in terms of the story, there's a fun little element where, like, we'll never fight side by side with Shitabe, but in terms of story, after you beat her, she turns good. And so you'll notice at the end of this, we'll see her, and she's still going to be evil. And that's because we're doing it out of order.
And he had to quit the game there and come back into it, because if he doesn't, the game will soft lock, and that's not what we want.
Just take my word for it, it does. And now we're going through the desert. Roos, do you have anything you want to say about the desert? Otherwise, it's a good place for donations again.
Just a quick little note, there is a cool strat right here, very RNG dependent, that he actually just killed a cactus there that we've named Chad. And you can do a cool strat where you use him to clip through the floor, but it's very RNG dependent. You can lose minutes to it, and at best, it only saves you a few seconds.
We do have $25 from Terra. Hey, Grimelios and Couch, Terra here. We've come a long way since the 12-hour challenge. Awesome to see you running at this GDQ. Hope you world record during this run. All the love from Scotland. Also, virtual high five to Roos on the couch.
Thanks, Sarah. We can do a few more if there are more. Otherwise, we'll just keep talking.
Well, we have $50 from Anonymous. Grimelios inspired me to learn to speedrun at GDQ last year, and now I'm here getting to see this in person. How cool is that? Shoutouts to Team Ragtag. Hashtag Guacamelee.
A second ago there, I just had to wait for my stamina to come back. It's really technical.
This is kind of an introduction to shields. I mean, we've seen them already, but we haven't talked about them yet. When enemies are going to be wrapped in this color, it means you have to do the associated special attack to break the shield before you can actually damage and kill them.
Yep, and it's the same colors as you would do for the blocks.
Exactly.
Like Headbutt breaks yellow blocks, it also breaks yellow shields. And enemies are invincible to damage until you break their shield. At the end here, we're going to do one of my favorite arenas in the game. There's a bit of RNG that can mess it up. If the RNG goes badly, it shouldn't be too much of a big deal, but hopefully they cooperate. I think this arena just looks very cool when done cleanly.
It's definitely a room that when things go well, it feels easy, and then as soon as one thing goes wrong, it really, really goes wrong.
Yep. Okay, let's do this. Okay. So some things went wrong. That's okay. We do this. Okay, that's the most important thing. Those enemies are called chupacabras. We sometimes call them John Ralphios because they're the worst.
They're the worst!
I forgot that guy can turn mid-attack. That's okay. So now we get attempt number 2, and hopefully the RNG will cooperate with me this time. Basically what happens is these two enemies to my left, these red ones, it's very subtle, but you notice how they walked on top of each other so I could kill them both at the same time. That sets up everything else. It means I can kill this guy. It means I can hit these green enemies this way. It means I can take all of these guys out like this.
Beauty.
Yep.
Good fight.
Thanks. And this is actually the end of the game. We're going to save the princess, and that's everything. GG.
Pas si vite!
Nah, just kidding. It's a trick. Shitabe's still evil, because we aren't supposed to have fought her yet. And coming up here is one of the most interesting parts of the game. It's also where the run really fundamentally changes. I'll say more about it in just a moment, but again, if you speak French, I guess you can maybe see this, but just in case you don't, Calaca here is angry at you because you're causing all this trouble, but he figures that you're not even worth his trouble. So rather than killing you, he's just going to turn you into a tiny chicken. And because of the costume I have, I'm actually a dragon, and this thing's really, really adorable, but trust me, it's a chicken. There's a lot to say about the chicken form, and we'll kind of start covering some of it. Early game, you remember that, Roos, I think it was you that mentioned that rolling is faster than running. Being a chicken is faster than rolling. So from now on, whenever possible, I'm going to be a chicken just when I'm running horizontally. Also, similar to early on in the Temple of Rain, we were switching back and forth between the living and dead world using those portals, right? And then we got an ability to switch back and forth. Right now, I'm stuck as a chicken. I couldn't change back to human if I wanted to. At the end of this section, I will gain something called Pollo Power, which will let me do just that. This room, there's nothing to it. You just kind of wait around, and then these guys like to jump into these spikes.
But you still have to pay attention because...
It's surprisingly easy to mess up, even though it's 100% consistent. it's one of those things where it gets so consistent that you stop paying attention to it, and then you die because you're really weak and you get two-shot by everything. You'll also see me going out of my way to get more money from these chests. We've also been getting money from enemies, and
that's to save up for that big purchase I said earlier,
which is coming up pretty soon, and I will explain that big purchase when you get there. It's pretty fascinating, actually. Here we're going to do a damage boost, just like every other damage boost that exists. Jump over here, and then we have the one and only chicken arena. These deluxes are really random, and they love to jump out of the way, so...
This is probably about the most frustrating 30 seconds in the entire run right here.
Like, you can't really
So
effectively
true.
jump at them. You just have to kind of like spam X and hope that they stay on the ground. And then there's this guy. He's a bit better. Also, the next room is one of the most RNG rooms in the run. Wait, no, I want that. This is the plant room, plant maze. I can tank one of these hits as a damage boost, and I will, but I have to make sure I do it at the right time, or else I'm at risk of dying.
You
Or
don't
I
need
can
to.
just not damage boost. That works too.
Nice again.
So a lot is about to happen. A lot is about to change in the run. What I'm about to do is spend a whopping 5,000 gold. This is the big ticket item we mentioned earlier. This is going to get me access to an area called El Inferno, or Hell. And I'll say more about that in a minute. First, we're going to go over to the left and talk to El Diablo, the devil who Calaca turned into a chicken. And he's going to teach us how to turn back into a human.
Now he's going to
Using
attempt to
Boya
do.
power.
He's going to attempt to do a trick called Highway to Hell, where he's going to try and jump right on top of El Diablo here and layer 2 different game triggers. And if it works, it'll
Got it.
allow him to go just directly to the right here. Normally, there would be a game trigger that would force him to come back to the left and go around and do a big detour.
That didn't look like much, but that actually saves about 20 seconds.
Yeah, nice job.
Thanks.
Well done.
Okay, so bear with me because this is going to take a minute to explain. We just spent $5,000 to get in here, right? It's a lot of money, which means that it better be worth it. The reason we go into this area is this game's a Metroidvania, and we've already picked up a bunch of skills. There are 4 skills that we still don't have. 2 of them we need, and 2 of them I'm actually going to skip. If you play this game casually, I'm never going to get double jump or go fly. But I do need 2 other skills. There's a climb ability and then something that lets me break blue blocks, which is going to be necessary to progress through the game. You can go get these skills normally, but they take a long time. You have to go through Tool Tree and Temple of War, and it takes a really long time. But instead, there's a better strat. And the way it works is that El Inferno is a series of challenge rooms, essentially. In one of the rooms, you run into, and it takes away all your abilities. It takes away all your abilities, and then when you leave, it gives you your abilities back. And the abilities it gives you back is based on your current objective. So what I'm going to do is Swap Hop, which is this wonderful trick that lets you gain infinite height. We'll say more about that soon.
Yeah, basically you're swapping between a human and chicken form using some jump buffering to gain infinite height, just like you said, which is pretty insane and allows you to get to some crazy places.
And
Now-
sorry, go ahead, Bruce.
Each individual swap hop has a few frames wide of a window to do it in, so each swap hop on its own is not that hard, but doing a bunch of them in a row like you're going to see Grim do is pretty challenging.
So the point is, I'm going to switch to another costume here. I'll come back to it in just a minute. But to finish my thought from before, what we just did is change the game's objective by getting it onto Sierra Mountain, which you're not supposed to be able to do until you've already legitimately acquired the skills that we're going to get. So now when we go in the room that we are going to go into, it's going to take away our abilities, and then when we come out, it's going to give us back some abilities we haven't picked up yet. And actually, it's funny because we're not going to go into the room that takes away your abilities. We're going to go into a different room, and for some reason, it's still going to work. We don't really know why. So this isn't going to look like much, but I'm going to leave this room, then I'll quit the game, spawn back here, and then watch in a second. I'm going to have some abilities I haven't picked up yet.
Swap
Here's one, and then I have another ability that lets me a punch to the side. And now we're into Sierra Mountain / Chupa Mountain / one of the...
Hell 2.
Yeah, Hell 2. It's a very, very fascinating area. Very fun to watch, I think, in terms of movement. Also very difficult.
That was the blue attack that we mentioned before.
Yep. Lots of swap hopping. I actually just skipped a cutscene trigger by going underneath. You'll see pretty quickly how broken swap hopping is. It's going to allow me to get up to all these areas that I'm not supposed to be able to get through.
This is not easy, by the way.
And this entire sequence in the mountains is definitely the most difficult portion of the run, but also the most interesting in terms of your varied movement, using a lot of different techs that we've used up until this point.
And we did switch to the skeleton costume, and the perk that is associated with her is that you have infinite stamina. So there's going to be these portions coming up where we're going to be doing a lot of platforming, a lot of jumping. We're going to be dropping swaps. And it's so easy to run out of stamina, as you can see before. So here, specifically, is what I was talking about. We're going to be able to zip through this a lot quicker and not have to wait and be at risk of these skeletons throwing bones at us.
Notice how I'm dodging out of a lot of these to save time. This next room is one of the worst in the run.
This area has been dubbed Chupa Mountain for the Chupacabra enemies. They will track you down, throw fireballs at you, ruin your swap pops. This is probably the hardest single portion that he has to deal with in the whole run.
There we go. Okay, grab that, and there we go. Now we do this. Good. Okay, we're past that, and now we're going to do a series of swap hops.
We can breathe. It's
pretty
fine.
much.
He made that look easy, but that room is incredibly difficult, guys.
Of course.
The thing is that once you get a hit, thanks. Once you get hit in that room, you just fall, and you can land. It's annoying because if you land not on a platform, you teleport back up, and that's great. But you tend to land on lower platforms, and it's just really annoying. Also, this is the hardest.
They are relentless.
This is the hardest swap hop in the game. Look how much height I have to gain.
Yeah, so one of the abilities that we were skipping is Goat Fly, right?
Yes.
And optimally, if you can do all of these swap hops perfectly, it doesn't even actually save you that much time.
It's like
but
4
Grim
seconds.
is just sadistic. So.
Pretty much. I once swapped up the whole wow, let me try that again. I swap hopped up the whole tool tree just for fun.
Wow.
If you don't play this game, you don't know what that means, but it was awful. I don't know why I did it.
Brutal.
Yep.
I actually, when learning to speedrun this game and learning to swap hop, got tendinitis in my right arm for the next 2 days.
Yeah, my fingers are
insane.
real tired right now.
To give another story about how hard swap hopping actually is, I tried to learn on controller, and as soon as I got to swap hopping, I switched to mouse and keyboard just for that trick.
So we're done with most. We're going to have one longer swap hopping sequence, but we'll come back to that in a minute. We're approaching some very interesting parts of the game that I'll say more about in a minute. By the way, that last section that I swap hopped over, you're supposed to fly past, but because I skipped fly, I had to swap hop over the whole thing. I'm about to fight Puma Man, and so I'm going to switch back to my costume that does double damage. This boss fight is super random like the others, but whereas the Shitabe fight was just kind of annoying and lost you time, this one he has some flame attacks, and just generally speaking in this game, you cannot dodge flame attacks. And because I'm weak, I will actually get 2-shot by all these flame attacks. And also this guy has like pretty much random shield colors, and he's just gonna switch back and forth between the light and dark world and just kind of generally be a kind of a pain. So if he's nice, we'll be able to kill him very quickly. Nope. Okay, see, that's a flame attack that I couldn't dodge.
Taking one hit.
Yep.
Oh my god!
That would have killed me. That would have killed me.
God!
Oh my god. He was about to do a flame pillar that would have killed me.
The greed paid off.
Wow. Okay, so as an additional note about this fight, he has to crawl all the way to the middle, so optimal strats are to kill him towards the middle, but given all his randomness, it's very hard to do that consistently. You kind of just have to hope.
This is just to skip a cutscene.
So what's next? What have you done so far? We've gone through the Temple of Rain. We've gone through the whole mountain. Coming up next is an area called the Grand Temple. It's the final temple of the game. Remember, we skipped one in the middle called the Temple of War. This temple is, especially casually, one of the most difficult in the game. It's a very long temple, lots of enemies that are mostly unique to this area. And keep in mind, because they take double damage, it is a very, very risky area. Similar to the Temple of Rain, where I went in at the bottom and climbed up to the top. My goal here is to get up to the very top, where I'm going to fight Calaca, the final boss fight of the game. And because this area is so difficult, I'm going to use a special strat. First, I'm going to go in like this. Then I'm going to buy something, because spending money is fun. Then I'm going to go out here. We're in Santa Lucida, don't ask me why. And then, like magic, we are at the top of the Grand Temple.
Great temple fight, Grim.
Good work.
10 out of 10.
Yep. That was called the Grand Temple skip. If you haven't played this game casually, that doesn't look like much, but I mean, we skipped the entire Grand Temple, which everything I said is true. It is a giant pain to get through, and so it's very nice that we can just skip it.
It's a huge dungeon. I think casually took me well over an hour to finish.
Yep. And now we're onward to Calaca. Calaca, this is the final boss fight, takes place in 2 phases. It has a lot of randomness, and the most important thing to note is that every single attack in both phases will one-shot me. so I have to not get hit at all.
Now, in this first phase, his pattern of attacks is predetermined, but what shield color he has and which dimension he will be in, that is random. So you need to be able to react to that very quickly.
We tend to refer to the cycles in this boss as like wheels, so we say like it's possible to unicycle him, for example, but it's almost impossible. My goal is to tricycle him. Good.
Nice.
Great fight.
Now that was a bit easy, don't you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you did pretty good. I
Yeah.
like that, yeah.
Yeah. So let's make the next part harder.
What are we doing? Okay.
Let's do this. Thank you. And just to double check, can I get game sound up? Perfect. Thank you very much.
And just remember, one shot. and
Yep.
he's
I have to
dead.
dodge everything because every single attack will one-shot me. And he has random shield colors, and it's very, very dangerous. And let's do this. Let's beat Calaca and save the princess. Here we go. There we go. Dodge these. Easy every time. Blue, yep. I have to determine those shield colors by process of elimination.
He's throwing temper tantrums.
Would you stop doing tantrums?
Oh my god.
Good, it's green. He's down. He's down. Got it.
Good job. Now, once Calaca dies, time is not going to be called until this platform in the middle lowers all the way to the bottom, and he
Yep.
triggers the final
Time is
cutscene.
coming up soon.
We get to do a celebratory dance.
Yep, totally required. You'll see me do what we very creatively call the Guac Dance. It is absolutely required, and your run will be rejected if you don't do it. This central platform is going to lower in a minute, and then I'm going to press Y, and that's when time ends, so I'll call it out in just a second. And that's how I beat Calaca. It's really easy. Here's the Guac Dance while you wait for this thing to lower. It's great exercise. And then time is right now.
Good job.
Nice job,
Thank you.
Grim.
Thank you. Unfortunately, the princess is dead, so it's not a very happy ending.
Yeah.
There is a happy ending, but it's slow, so we don't do it. Well, you do, but in a different run. So that's Guacamelee. It's a really fantastic game. Great combat, great platforming, very funny game. I'd highly recommend it if you're into these kinds of platforming action games.
Thanks, guys.
Anything else?
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
I think that's about it.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, excellent work on that run. Up next, we have Dustforce from Savade. With a few more donations to fill in. We have $20 from Metal Llama. Sup, folks? Glad to see Dustforce run by such a fabulous and cute runner as Savade. I miss you all. I wish I could be there to support you. Love all of you Dustforcers. $25 from Spike. Go SGDQ and the defunct and Guacamelee crowd. Thanks for running an awesome event. This one's a little late, but we have $20 from Robin. Have to donate during Freedom Planet. My favorite game since the start of the year. Thanks so much to Galaxy Trail for its existence and to Flattery for this great run. I always knew Mila was OP, but this is something else. We have $10 from Reign of Sodden. It's been a long time from CGDQ to now. From a small TV to this crazy HD one. Good job, fair sir. You definitely exceeded everyone's predictions with how far this game has gone and will go. $40 from Scoot Senpai. Not my last donation of the week, but put this towards the Momodora hand cam. Really looking forward to it. And lastly, we have $50 from Nancy. I have watched every SGDQ and donated every time. Here's to keeping up the tradition. Thanks to everyone there and everyone watching for giving their time, energy,